Welcome to Kerbal Space Program Breaking Ground, Episode 1. So we did the preparatory episode last time. Unfortunately, it was a bit wasted because I did have to go and create a new save, but I went through and did all the stuff I did in that pre-preparatory episode. So you don't have to watch any of that. Just because someone said that, hey, to see this spawn on planets, you need a new save file. So I thought, yeah, well, let's make sure that actually happens. So I will create a new save file, just in case. And if they're trolling me, well, it didn't take them very long to get to the same amount of progress. So where are we? We're in orbit. And we're in orbit with Jeb. And what's that coming over the horizon? Oh, it's the moon. We seem to have a second stage here. We didn't have that last episode. Well, we'll get to how the rocket's constructed later. Why now? Let's go that way. And let's see whether this actually gets us where we need to go. So we're burning with a Terrier engine, that's the LV909, and we're going to use a traditional eyeballing method to get to the Mun, or the moon. Let's just call it the moon. And that is just point at the horizon when you're in orbit and burn until you're close. We ideally want a free return trajectory. We'd rather not have to deal with anything else. And you'll see I've got about 1,000 meters per second of fuel. That should be enough to actually get us out there. We can make small adjustments when we get about halfway out, but what we ideally want is, I don't think we can even select that as a target right now, because we don't have any of the upgrades. So let's just bring ourselves in slowly, and we want to get an encounter, hopefully, again. Let's see if that happens. It should do. And am I going to be able to see it, though? That's the only problem. Yeah, interesting. Let's just keep on going. I'm not going to be able to see it, aren't I? Yeah. So why don't I just bring that in a little bit and make sure I'm roughly in the right kind of area. Using a small amount of fuel to actually adjust this. Let's just say it's there for now. And then let's time warp forwards until we get out there, and let's see just how badly I've hit it. Or missed. And here we are. Did get an encounter. Couldn't see it until now. That's about roughly the right kind of area. And we have a periapse of 622,000 meters. So we could bring that in that a lot closer, or we could just fly by. To be honest, I'm going to fly by. Because on board here, first of all, we have a Science Junior, which I opened up with some science that I got from just getting various temperature and pressure scans. And of course, we've got our container on top now, which can actually just collect the data. So if I want everything I possibly can, then I'm just going to collect it all. Okay, and we'll keep that with us. This is pretty much now useless, unfortunately, because we're going to collect all. And at this point, that may as well be dead. Now, we can't really see the free return trajectory, so we're going to have to use some of our fuel. But to do that, we're going to fly past the moon and see what happens when we come out the other side. So 622, I can't even time warp to specific areas or anything like that. I'm going to turn SAS off, make sure I don't use much fuel, and let's fast forward out through the other side. We are, although it is showing us relative to the moon now, because we've changed sphere of influence, in reality, we are still sort of on the very, very farthest point of our orbit away from Kerbin. This is just where we've got it. So let's fast forward. And you'll see we are going to get influenced, but let's see how much of a kick it's going to give us. Hopefully not a lot, but well, that looks like it is going to be more than I was expecting. Yeah, so there we go. So our Apo is now right around the moon's orbit. It's pulled us upwards towards it, which is what you'd expect. But you'll see what our peri is right now. So it's 577, so we need to bring that down. Bring ourselves to SAS, and because Jeb is a level 1 pilot, he can actually do that and point towards retrograde. And then we can burn and bring that in somewhat. Well, when I say somewhat, I want to bring that back down to just under 30. So let's speed that up a little bit. 200 now. 150, 100, and let's cut it off because it does actually get a bit finicky when you get close. You can go into fine control mode with caps lock, but that will do perfectly fine. 29? Yeah, 29 will be fine. So again, I'm going to turn off SAS, make sure I'm not doing any power kind of operations, and now we pretty much are on our way back. So on the way and back to from the moon in the start of episode 1. Well, I cheated with episode 0. Anyway, so now I need to go and head back, and that will of course get us much faster as we get in, and then we have to make sure that everything works when we arrive back. So let's just get ourselves back towards the planet, and then we're establishing contact again, and we're going to be coming in over the top. So at some point around about here, yeah, around about here, what are we at? We're still at 29, so that's perfectly fine. We will turn SAS on and point retrograde-ish. There we go. I'm going to flip around, turn us a little bit, and then now we can get rid of this upper stage. We still had over 500 meters per second delta V available, so that is pretty good. So I'm just going to flip us this way and detach. There goes our Science Junior. That's the really expensive part. Unfortunately, I didn't want a chance actually putting the Science Junior and the container on the main pod. So now we're going to be coming in as we normally would, except we're coming in faster than normal because we're coming in from Munar intercept essentially. So let's just fast forward a little bit, just until you see the wonderful flames. And here come the flames, and hopefully not destruction for Jeb. Assuming that doesn't happen, I'll see you back at the base. And with a near perfect splashdown, we have 115 science just from a flyby of the moon. You can also pick up quite a bit by then doing exactly the same flight, but in this case bringing your periapsis from the moon down. You want it as close as possible to the moon. Well, the problem with that is that that will kick your orbit a lot more than what we did. So be quite careful while you're doing it. It might be best to get some of the upgrades to your Kerbal Space Center first, but in our case, maybe we'll try it. We'll see. And we've got this 115 science to spend. Now, of course, this is episode 1 of Breaking Ground, so we're going to want to spend that on something, well, something appropriate. So down here we have electrics, and electrics happen to have a few things that we want. Solar panels would be nice, the octo, but also this. So this is a photovoltaic panel, and it's just like the solar panels here. In fact, it doesn't actually give us it doesn't give us the electric charge per second. It gives us a new type of unit called power units produced. So I think that's to simplify things, because in the other nodes, miniaturization and space exploration are the other ground-based stuff. So if you want to get those, you need to come over here. So in this one, there's the GUOOB ED monitor. So yeah, that is science power. And it doesn't require an atmosphere. It can be used in either one. That's fine. And that's just basically for mystery goo, as you might imagine from the name. And then you also have this, the Probodobodyne Experiment Control Station. So that's the hub, basically. So you need the hub, you need a power unit. In this case, this is a power unit. So both of those. And then you attach on a particular science experiment. In this case, the GUOOB ED monitor. Now, I haven't actually tried those yet. You know, we can go into not the career mode, but into the sandbox mode if you actually want to try them out. That may be worth actually trying. But those are in those nodes. This is in those nodes. Nothing else I've seen in the expansion is in these first few nodes. Although one of the things I actually want to do here is take this aviation node. For no other reason than we can build a rover with it, because it comes with wheels, and wheels are important to build rovers. But you can choose the Kerbal Space Center by going and getting science from all over the place out there. So we're going to take the research node. That leaves us with 70, but we're going to be getting some more science in very shortly, and I'm not going to actually spend on anything else. Let's go across to the spaceplane hangar, and let me load in the base rover just to get some science. It is basically a small Terrier engine with a tank attached, and let's just actually change that to solid white. And then it's got a Science Junior, it has got a pod, and it's got an experiment storage unit. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to repack the Science Junior by default, but let's actually just put a... is it Scientist Engineer? I can never remember which way around. I assume it's Scientist, so we're going to just go ahead with that. And then we should be able to then put some wheels on this thing. So let's just get some fixed landing gear and a nose cone. Well, a nose landing gear, I should say. It's steerable, of course. So let's just put these in place and get them roughly right. We want to have them far enough down that we can rotate them. These are pointing inward, of course. We need to just adjust that a little bit. There we go. We want a little bit of ground clearance. We're not going to be getting off because we have this experiment storage unit. That's not going to be a problem, but we do want to make sure that we have enough ground clearance for the space around the Kerbal Space Center. So that is pointing the wrong way, thank you. It would be nice if you could just attach somewhere that is not weird. Oh, hang on. You're still using a side one. You need to buy them before, because I've used the hard settings. There we go. That's much better, isn't it? Okay. That's far too far back. And I think what I'm even going to do is I'm just going to put a structural node in. And we're going to attach that to the front, I want to say. Then I'm going to attach the nose wheel to that if I can. Yeah, that looks a lot better-ish. We're just going to basically move this structure up and inward. Obviously, it wouldn't go into the crew cabin. We'd just cut it off and weld it. So, yeah, it's not. Don't worry about clipping. And that will do just there. So this is our beginning rover. It's terrible, but it will actually get us some science. Because all the science experiments are loaded on top that we have already. And we have the container and hopefully a scientist to actually... Well, I'm not sure if he's going to level up, but yeah, he can certainly drive stuff around. All right, so let's get that off to a good start, and let's give it a go, and let's see if it actually works. Knowing my luck, they've probably removed all science possibilities from the Space Center itself. However, we'll get started. Oh, here we are on the runway, and that looks a little bit bouncy. Just a little bit. Yeah, brakes. Yeah, we might need to adjust some things there. However, we have all these experiments that we can actually just take immediately, and we'll just take all of them. There we go. Then we'll collect them all in the front. Okay. And now well, we need to get out to be able to do this. So I'm just, first of all, just going to stage, and I'm going to bring our throttle all the way down. So stage, and the throttle can go up. And we're just going to hopefully get over and off this infernal runway. More crashes on this runway than anything else. Now, it's entirely possible it may be that structural grid that I actually created that's causing this kind of bouncing, but I may have to adjust some of the parameters to get it to work. In any case, let's go into some smooth ground and see if it stops. What happens when we hit the smooth ground? No, it's still going. And I don't know why. Fine. Can we actually EVA and hopefully not lose anything here? We can restore. Good. Okay, that will be fine. And I'm going to need to move those up here onto the pod because I need to be able to access them from the pod itself. So let's get back in, and you get the idea. We can take the material study and in other places. However, for the moment, let's just keep going this out around the base off camera. So I will see you probably after a little bit of a rebuild for this this goo pod. But otherwise, it's looking okay if we can get the stability working. 179 science. Lots and lots and lots of science. Don't forget to get the science around the flag, the base of the flag, which is right there. Okay, the flagpole. You need to get really close to it. And also, one thing I haven't got yet, but is also basically the track in between the launch pad and the vehicle assembly building. Go along there as well. So other than that, I've picked up everything around, including EVA reports for a relatively small amount of science. Anyway, what do we have available? Okay, the next one is we'd like to go to the moon and stay there in a nice stable orbit. It isn't personal, it's science. So yeah, rather than flying past the moon, well, they want us to basically get into orbit around it. And also there is science data from surface of the Mun, or the moon, and we're not really ready to do that just yet. So yeah, we're a bit stuck on those two missions. So we should probably take a look at what we can spend or what we can buy with all that science. Interesting stuff from Breaking Ground on. Aside from these down here, the 90 nodes for basically exploration and stuff. Up here in this advanced construction section is where we get the new stuff. Now that is of course behind general construction, of course, so we're going to need to take that anyway. So why don't we just take it and get the pain out of the way? I don't like that node. There's nothing much in it aside from the launch stability enhancer that I actually want. Well, struts I suppose, but yeah, we can do without them to get started. Flight control I'm not too concerned about at all, but maybe that will be needed. Is there anything in advanced flight control that's new? No. Okay, fine. So behind it is this 90 node advanced construction. And in here are the new parts. So we've got a rotation servo. A rotation servo, basically, yeah, we can, through almost 360 degrees, we can rotate them. And a servo, typically you have control of the angle that they rotate to. We have hinges, so square hinges and sort of an alligator hinge. We have a hydraulic cylinder. Not too I don't know quite what we'd use hydraulic cylinders for. The only thing I can think of is landing legs, to attach landing legs to them to extend the clearance from the main pod or something like that. You know, some kind of stilts for that kind of thing. At least for regular craft, before we get into like what people are inevitably going to create, which is like mechs walking along the ground. You know that's going to happen. So aside from those, I'm not too concerned about the hydraulic cylinders so much. But the servos, they might be good, and the hinges, we should build it on the hinge things, so away from the body of anything. So let's just take this node, not because I actually do want lots of other nodes as well, but I don't have the money for them. We don't have to worry about the extra engines just yet. The spark will be really nice, but again, we don't have to worry about it. We can go and get some more science by passing by the moon again. Aerodynamics. Nope, nothing new. Fuel systems, nope. Landing, do we have anything landing? No, that's all old stuff. So why don't we just take this node? And we're also going to want to go into these nodes, but those are the ground-based science. And because you'll need all three, that's going to take that 270 science. So it's going to take quite a while to get to them. We'll be able to construct stuff before we get there. So let's take a look. So one of the things I'm going to do is just sort of go with some kind of unmanned satellite. So let's just take our existing Puddle Jumper 3. Yeah, the Puddle Jumper 3 will do. And this is the craft I went to the moon in the start of the episode. I did say I'd cover what was on it. Basically, just 2 solid rocket boosters of the cheap kind that you get at the start of the game. The next to smallest one that we have. And they're attached radially. They're firing on their own. They're basically kick motors. And then the next stage, the main stage, is kicking in, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 of these 400 fuel tanks, and above that we have another 400 fuel tank with the Terrier attached, and then at the top you have the container. Nothing excessive, nothing, you know, troubling to actually worry about, but we can probably do better. So let's just take off the boosters for now, and let's just call this the 4. Okay, because this is probably going to be our unmanned pod. Speaking of unmanned, that means we can get rid of some stuff. We can get rid of all the science stuff and the parachute. And in fact, I suppose we could leave the science stuff on. It is useful to leave at least one thing on, just so that you can get science from around Kerbin if it actually asks you to. And the thermometer is the cheapest option there. So the Probodyne, horrible thing to actually try and say every time, is the Putnik is the best kind of option we have. Now I'm not sure if we have any kind of fairings just yet. Do we? Coupling, payload. We do have a fairing. Good. The first fairing that's available, that is. So we're gonna put that underneath. I was tempted to go for like to put the whole stage in there with like a small tank, but we don't really have any small tanks, so I'm just going to use this just to protect this and give it a kind of a much more smooth aerodynamic top. There we go. Once it's in space, it doesn't really matter. Underneath that, let's actually just get rid of a few things. One is we don't need the decoupler as such, and we definitely don't need the... Where did my heat shield go? Has that been merged in there? or did it get dragged off? Let's just put this back again and just grab a new one just to make sure. There we go. We can take the Science Junior up, but we already have Science, so we're not going to worry about that too much. You can come off. We do want some kind of fuel tank, but I get the feeling that we're going to be able to get away with a fairly small fuel tank. So let's bring that down in size. Terrier is pretty ideal. Spark would be even better, but again, we spent it on this, so we shouldn't, you know, worry about that too much. And in here, we're just going to stick that thermometer on the side. We're also going to stick in a couple of antennas because we need to be able to communicate with this thing. And it's going to be one of our first really sort of terrible satellites, basically for communications. So you could put a high gain antenna on it, but we don't really have too much in the way of batteries right now, so that's not great. Let's just stick with the Communitron 16 for now. I'm going to put that right on the top if I can, or thereabouts. And that will do for now. I almost want the whip-like antennas you get in realistic overhaul, realism overhaul in Real Solar System. That would make it much more like the real-life version of the Stay Put Egg. In any case, that will get most of it done. We have 5,981. That's enough to go to the Mun and back. However, we will lose contact if we try and do that. So let's just bring the cost of this thing down a little bit. Let's just see. What happens if we take off one of these sections? Let's leave the separator. Still 5,000. Okay, fine, no problem. And we can thrust. Well, we can get rid of that for a second, and we get rid of this, and that gives us a nice, neat little tiny launcher for satellites. Now, because it's for our early satellites, to make sure we don't lose contact with the ground, what we're going to be doing with this thing is just to set it up such that it lofts quite high. It's going to go up more than it is going to go sideways. And once it gets up there, look quite a bit more, then we will go sort of more sideways. There we go. And because it isn't realism overhaul, we can basically fire our motors at the same time as we release the clamps. There isn't any problem with that. And let's move these stages around. That doesn't seem right. Why am I only getting 2,600? Yeah, what's going on here? Let me just check this out. It's just the sea level versus altitude thing again. The LV909, the Terrier, is a vacuum engine, so its amount of delta V will only gain as it goes up. At sea level, it's terrible. So it looks awful, but that should resolve itself as long as we can get it high enough into the air, or the lack of air, I should say, before it actually engages. That will be best. And we'll then have this available as a communication satellite. We do have a few batteries. So let's just, for the moment, let's just stick those on the side of this. And that can go near the top, maybe. That should fit. That doesn't fit. Let's put them near the bottom, where they have the most possible room. There we go. Oh, they still stick at the sides a little bit. Let's just rebuild this. I want clamshell deploy, definitely. And a larger ejection force is always actually worthwhile. Delete the fairing, and let's just rebuild it. Let's pull that out a little bit and go up and in. Okay. Sort of horrible, but it'll do for now. In any case, that's that done. That seems to be off center, but it should fly just fine. Now, with all that done, do we have any solar panels yet? Just to keep this thing powered once it's up there. Science, electrical. Do we have solar panels? Did I have enough science to go and buy some solar panels? I guess I didn't. Let me just save that and let's go and see. I think it's in a 90 tier. And we only got 45. Yeah, there they are. It's a 90 tier. So we're going to need more science, which needs another flight to the moon. However, I'm not going to worry about it too much for this starter one. I just want to launch this and launch an unmanned satellite. So off we go with our Puddle Jumper 4. And there is no crew capacity. We can just launch whenever we like. I'm just going to fast forward until next morning, just so you get a nice morning launch. Oh, all right, I couldn't resist. Let's use something else instead of a solar panel that actually is pretty similar, and that will be something like a radiator panel. So let's just choose maybe this one, small one. And normally this would be strapped to the side. That is about the same size as a solar panel. And then in robotics, which is a new tab available, there is another new tab down here for cargo, for transporting them. But in robotics, we have all these different options. And I'm just going to buy them all just so we have them available. And then we can have a look at hinging. So let's just put this on, just have one of each of these on each of the sides. And we'll just play around with it. So here we've got the different types of hinging. That's quite a small hinge. I quite like that. This one obviously is a lot larger. And we have a traverse rate, so how fast it opens, and if it's motorized, and if the motor's engaged, etc., and stuff like that. And we have angle limits. This reminds me very much of, what were Space Engineers? Yeah, Space Engineers. Unfortunately, this game also has the Kraken, just like Space Engineers. So if that's a problem, then yes, we got a problem. So we'll just take this off the side. In fact, let's just make a copy. And we're just going to strap it to the side of this. And hopefully it will attach to the right part. It looks like it will. That's probably going to need some tailoring. I mean, on a normal solar panel, it'll be fine. And then you can set the target angle. So we can bring this out and face them at 90 degrees. Okay. So then we can, presumably, automate that. So if we go into, do we have, we don't have action, no, we don't have action groups yet. So we're going to have to maybe manually control it. Okay, so let's just bring that in to, let's see, back to 90. And can we actually just control this by any means whatsoever? Yeah, I'm going to have to play around with that. Ideally with an action group, because then you'll be able to control the target angle between 0 and 90. And then that will go between these two angles, and you got something going. Similarly, we can do this exactly the same thing for antennas to extend them outwards, and we can do that on any side, but we got both hinges, they'll work identically. So let's just look at the other options. We have a rotation servo, so let's just move that to this side for a second. And this has a similar option, target angle. You see that allows for rotation. And again, very much like that kind of thing would work for solar panels. So if you wanted to think about tracking the sun or something similar to that kind of thing, you'd want to sort of mount things going this way. Obviously fitting a lot better than that, but you get the idea. We can then control the angle that way. So you could combine the two to have complete control of what angle your stuff is actually pointing at. And that goes for other things too. So if we're going to have landing legs on the thing, we can control whether the landing legs are up or down in more ways than we could originally. Originally, the landing legs were very much just it. You had them retracted or extended, and that was it. Now, you can build landing legs out of pretty much anything. You can build them out of modular girder segment, and well, maybe that's a little bit large. But later on, you get smaller versions, and you could build them on, well, in fact, this is just a small rocket, that's why. And you could build them out of struts and modular girder segments to have a really stable base, rather than just the landing legs that you sometimes have a bit of stability problems with. Of course, that all comes with weight, so you've got to consider that when you actually build this kind of stuff. Now, I could go into Sandbox here and let's have a look at the action groups, but I think I'm going to come back once we've got the action groups open in Korea. In the meantime, I'm sure you're going to have an experiment with this and see how well these actually work. They should work just fine. I can't imagine there'll be any issues with them. And again, if you have any suggestions for what you can use the hydraulic cylinder for, yeah, let me know in the comments. Now, unfortunately, launching a satellite like this is a bit of a problem because in the very early game, there are no SAS modules for it. We have no pilots, which means I'm flying this without SAS with WSAD, which is nerve-wracking. So I'm just going to loft ourselves out of the atmosphere until we're well up so we have more control and I'm not having to basically fight any air whatsoever. And once we get to that kind of height, we'll be able to use the second stage, which is much better for kind of a vacuum operations. So we're already up to 100 kilometers and that should be fine. So there is our orbit marker and we can bring down our throttle and just start tipping over. And we're going to get fairly high so that we retain contact with the ground. Oh, but there that goes. And there that goes as well. So that is fine just there. I'm going to cut that off for a second, and I'm going to lose the payload fairing. Clamshell deploy and clean deploy more than anything else. No solar panels, so this is going to go dead eventually, but it gets us a start in orbit. So now, of course, because I have, well, basically this whole thing, I really hope... Oh, I don't even have... This thing doesn't even have any sort of reaction wheel. Oops. We're going to have to do that just with engine gimbal control, which will work. It just means I have to keep the engine on when I actually want to change direction. In any case, it is perfectly possible to get this done. We just need to just tip over sideways a little bit and burn a little bit faster. And here we are, approaching orbit. We're off a little bit, but that is going to be perfectly fine. And there we go. So it's sort of circular-ish, 250 or 266 by 308. It's more than fine when you're flying manually with no stability control whatsoever. So yes, we have a nice orbit, which is not as high as perhaps, you know, communication satellites need to be, but it's certainly high enough for us to be able to raise this with the rest of our fuel. So that is probably something I should consider doing. And yeah, I'm not going to worry about it just yet, though. Still no SAS, and still only ability to control this when my engine's on. So yeah, maybe I'll burn half the fuel. So that's 500. Let's just get it to our prograde marker. And let's just get that and see how high this thing goes. So, burn. And remember, this is more than enough to actually get us to the moon, so I may not want to just burn all of it. I just thought of danger there. Whoops. Whoops. Yes, we're a very light satellite, so yeah, I'm probably going to want to spin around and just bring that into about halfway. Just as a thought, I'm going to start the throttle up, spin ourselves around. That's going to take a little bit of time. It'll come back in a second. And there we go. Whoa, stop that. There he goes. Go back a little bit. Back a little bit. Okay, and around about there will do. Yep. And let's get it to make sure we're not going to have any kind of encounter. So somewhere around about here will do for me. Yeah, that's about fine. Let's leave it there. And then we'll go ahead up here. Let's see if we actually can keep a connection. It's 90% at the moment, so that's not, well, maybe not great. But when it comes back around, we should be able to think about some heights that we can get with just that basic Communicatron 16 or whatever it's called. So, yeah, I'm going to fast forward. Yes, unfortunately, we do lose contact. So we lose contact around about there. So you can't really get that far out with that just Communicatron 16, which is fine. We can go to the high gain antennas, but we're going to want the solar panel first. In any case, I'm going to leave this here. It's a first communication satellite. It will work when it's closer to Kerbin, except for the fact we're out of electric charge. So there is that as well. So we do need solar panels. This will be fine. It's a lesson learned, I guess. Back to the Space Center. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today's episode. I think we're slightly out of time. I'm going to play around with those hinges a little bit more on Sandbox and maybe hook up some action groups in and then, but we'll get the idea. We want to unfold stuff basically from the side of our rockets and probes. We haven't got to the ground stuff yet. That will come soon enough. But for now, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time for some more Kerbal Space Program. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. Give it a thumbs up if you have. Subscribe, share if you normally would want to. And of course, you can click on the bell if you want notifications when a new video is released. That's up to you entirely. See you next time. Thanks for watching.